sometimes called the hidden side of domestic abuse. Children attacking their own parents. Research by Good Morning Britain has found it increased significantly over lockdown.
Now, police figures show there were more than 4,000 incidents reported between March and June. And Louisa James spoke to a mum whose daughter attacked her repeatedly from the age of 12.
Started out with slapping. At some point she was attacking her sister, she was attacking me. She had me up against a wall with her hands around my throat. She chased me with a big bit of wood to try and attack me with it. There have been times when I have felt genuinely in danger, more from the thought this could go wrong. You know, I could fall down the stairs, she could hit me and I could hit my head wrong. Often it's come to having to call the police just to de-escalate the situation and have her removed from the environment. I have to be honest, at times like that, I felt utter relief to have a moment's breathing space.
What does that feel like as a mother to have your own child doing that to you?
Absolutely desperate. I cannot describe the desperation I felt. I felt angry, I felt powerless, I've also felt desperately worried about her, wanting her to get the support she needs, because this comes from a place of mental health issues. And you know, a damaged child. This is not a healthy, happy child that behaves like this.
Extraordinary stuff. Our correspondent Louisa James has been looking into this. I mean, this is an incredible investigation you've done here, because I think, first of all, a lot of people wouldn't even know that this problem was so big. We've also got Jane Griffiths, founder and director of Kappa, a charity set up to respond to parent abuse by children and teenagers. Again, I think many people who haven't had direct need of you wouldn't know that this was a problem that had a charity specifically set up for it. So, first of all, Louisa, I think we all saw tensions in lockdown, didn't we? And we're aware of some horrible incidents of increased domestic violence between, you know, couples and incidents of abuse to children. I don't think many people necessarily realise this kind of abuse was going on towards parents.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I found really shocking when I was speaking to Kath, that's not her real name, but the woman who we spoke to about this, and it sounds obvious when I say it now, but I think what I hadn't thought about was that if this is your own child, it's not like you can just get them out of the house in the way that we potentially would expect in a domestic violence situation where it's a partner being abusive to their partner. The priority is often to get the victim away to a safe house of some sort, but obviously if it's your child, you can't just do that, can you? And so lockdown increased that pressure because there was no escape valve. There were no support groups that were meeting in person or places where people could go to let off steam. It was just all confined within the home, and that's what made it particularly intense.
And what is the legality of that then, Jane Griffiths? Because when we think of child abuse, the concern, of course, is the children, they're being abused by the people there to protect them. You know, home is not safe. And they're so young that very often they don't know that they can seek help. If a parent is being abused, we feel that there should be a law that stops that happening.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's the poor relation to domestic abuse. We consider child-to-parent abuse to be that hidden part of domestic abuse. And the police are not helpless or powerless, but there is not a lot really that the police can do other than go down the criminalisation route, which is something we really advocate not to happen. A child is not being abusive because they don't just want to listen to rules. They're being abusive often due to complex issues going on around trauma, mental health, substance misuse, additional behaviour issues. So it's not just a child not wanting to listen to what's happening.
Yeah. I mean, we've had lots of comments on this. People saying that they've experienced it, people saying that they're concerned about it, and then some people saying, listen, this is what you get when the law says you can't smack your child. The lesson that's then taught to the child is that they can, you know, get away with anything. Is that something that you... Right, sorry, yes, continue.
No, sorry. I mean, just to answer that, I mean, you know, hitting or smacking a child is only going to invoke fear into a child. It's not going to support a child to understand healthy or positive relationships and therefore improve their behaviour. And we hear that quite a lot, that, oh, if you just put firmer boundaries in place. This is not a parenting issue. This is not a parent not putting in sufficient boundaries. This is a relationship fracture. This is complex needs from a young person who's doing often this behaviour is out of fear and not feeling safe. And that's for a complexity of reasons. That can be bullying at school. That can be not feeling safe at home. It can be feeling loss or grief or fear of some description. That's why a child's behaving that way. And a clip around the ear is not going to solve that.
Jane Griffiths, we've seen a 25% increase this year in the same, in comparison to the same period last year. And Louisa, we know that some police departments didn't get back to you, so it could possibly be more. Jane, what are the sort of real specific reasons, do you think, that are related to lockdown? What are some of those things that parents will be going through, watching the TV now, in all different levels, of all different kind of, some in extreme cases, some not so much. But what are those issues exactly?
So, during lockdown, we had families spending an increasing amount of time together. And many families I have worked with over this period have spoken about trying to keep a normal routine in place has been so difficult, trying to home educate, trying to work, trying to understand their own finances in this situation. Very stressful time for many families, at a time when young people in particular are trying to be more independent and push those boundaries with parents. What we're seeing is parents and children spending much more time together. There's a feeling of cabin fever or a pressure cooker experience. On top of that, there's been a lack of networks for families to talk to. So it's been much harder for families to get in hold of professionals. Groups have had to stop. And we're now playing a bit of catch-up of how do we support these families, given the fact that it's likely to be, groups are not likely to be running until at least sort of early next year.
Louisa, your brilliant investigation is also backed up by research from the University of Oxford as well, isn't it? And have you been able to get any sense, now that you've highlighted this so really, what the government response or what the support could be? Have you contacted them?
Well, we did contact the Home Office and we asked them to comment on the statistics that we found, and also that research by Oxford University. They had spoken to parents who've been through this about whether they'd seen an increase, and 70% reported seeing an increase in this kind of violence. But I think what was really highlighted by the Home Office response is the lack of understanding of this. They pointed us to £2 million that they've dedicated to domestic violence charities and organisations. But of course, that's domestic violence as a whole. And what the practitioners I've spoken to are saying is, this is a very specific form of domestic violence. And the Home Office statement also said, we're working to better understand this complex issue. But that kind of says it all, doesn't it? That even the Home Office still doesn't quite understand what this is. And I think it's really significant that one of the Oxford University professors said to us, this should be seen as an opportunity. If there's a young person displaying violence in this way, this should be seen as an opportunity to intervene and stop that child becoming an adult who becomes violent. But unless we understand what is happening and the fact that this is going on, then those support services aren't going to be funded properly.
Jane, people could be watching right now who are feeling either that they're being abused and the situation has erupted to that degree, or that they sense, they're reaching a boiling point of tensions. What should they do? Who can they go to?
Good question. It's hard to find support out there. Certainly there's organisations like mine that can offer immediate support to families. But I think what I would say to parents is, there's two things really. If you're in real fear, and fear that you're going to be hurt, or your child is going to be hurt, or somebody else in the home, then I think it's about calling the police, as difficult as that is. But secondly, this is about escalation, and escalation in that arguing, and to step away for a moment. Just step away, take a breath, and come back to it. Make some phone calls, look up organisations like mine, look up domestic abuse organisations, and get some support.